A world is slowly being destroyed by mysterious monsters called Asagami. An organization has created weapons made from cells of an Asagami. So, those cells are to be transplanted into professionals who have been dispatched to battle. Lenka also wanted to leave but was suddenly held back by the female commander. He falls on his friend Kota and the commander wants them both to practice on time, because now is not the time for the two to join the fight. When she answered yes or no, Lenka wanted to hit her, but she just obediently followed. He later became acquainted with her and the two then went to practice together. Although it was her first time training, Lenka was able to stay calm in battle, and she panicked even when it was only a 3D projection. Lenka, in order to help her, was attacked and failed. So, the commander gave them both a redo and so on until evening. His hatred for monsters resurfaced and he went to the commander and begged her to let him continue training. He then went to the gym and met her again. She wondered why he was trying so hard, but he said he was very hostile to this monster. He then continued to train under the supervision of the commander. The minister then came to check it out. The commander said that Lenka has very good skills because she used to survive outside, but especially loves to help people and then dies early. He then sat down to rest and met her again. He took Lenka to the weapon room and then brought him to see Laika, who was the captain of the maintenance team. She apologized for being late in finishing and letting him practice with poor quality goods. Now, she had finished making weapons for him to practice and use to fight monsters. Lenka then became more interested and planned to continue practicing, but she left first. On the way, Lenka heard that the first platoon was the strongest team at the moment. He then goes to practice and when he goes out, he accidentally runs into a girl in the command room named Hibachi. She looked rushed. When he got back to the command room, he knew that there were monsters infiltrating the castle. He was on the battlefield when he accidentally met another God Slayer, and he was attacked by monsters from both sides in the mine base. Lenka wanted to go to war, but the commander didn't let him, because he didn't want to lead him to his death. He rushed to fight when the monster blew his weapon away and was surrounded by monsters. The God Slayer also wanted him to run away and leave him here, but he still wanted to turn the situation around. But a monster was about to rush at him when a man jumped down to kill it. A helicopter overhead appears and a girl also jumps down shortly after and shoots the monsters. Then the commander also appeared. He is Lin Dao and they are the first squad. The team is considered the strongest at the moment. They just got off the mission. The Lin Dao group then calmly dealt with the monsters. When it comes to medicine, Lin Dao still slowly smokes it. But Lenka saw that someone was in trouble, so she ran over. He knew he wouldn't make it in time, but he still begged for it. And the sword seemed to fulfill that wish and changed into a gun and finished the monster with one shot. Everyone was surprised because this was the first time they witnessed a weapon that could change freely like that. Another monster approached but he couldn't shoot anymore. Eric wanted Lenka to stay alive and then he was taught how to use a gun by his sister. She introduced herself as Sakuja and went out with him to support Lin Dao. Sakuja threw a bomb to get the rest of the team Soma close to attack, but its tail was about to strike back when Lenka fired at it. He also ran inside and fired an explosive bullet, but it released an electric shock and fainted. Lin Dao had to come to pick him up. Lenka dimly regained consciousness while being admitted to the hospital. When he opened his eyes, he was already in prison. The commander said he was arrested for disobeying orders, so he will be detained until there is punishment from the leadership. He wanted to know what happened after that, but she said nothing. She gave something from Lenka to Lin Dao because she knew Lin Dao was going to meet him. But the minister considers him to be the rare person who can use this new shape-shifting divine weapon. Lin Dao went to see Lenka and he knew they won. It was true that they won and the monster was defeated, but the price to pay Eric is gone. Lenka still couldn't believe it and wanted to know what happened. When he fainted, Soma was about to leave him, but Lin Dao chose to save him. The rest of the base had now also come to support Lin Dao. He left Lenka in the care of someone else and went to fight the big one. By early morning they also won, and Lenka received medical attention. But suddenly an undead monster rushed to ask for Lenka's meat, so Eric stood up to help him and then left. Lin Dao then gave him his compass. The minister has finished the meeting and for the time being there is no punishment for Lenka. But if they lose someone as special as Lenka, it will be a loss. Soma went on a mission, so there were only 2 people left in his group who couldn't go. He stood up so he opened the door for him. He said that Lin Dao suggested the idea so he would supervise him. He gave him 3 rules: don't die and run if he sees any danger, must hide carefully and wait for the opportunity to attack the enemy. He later joins Lin Dao's group and then sets off with him to help a plane carrying someone special like Lenka. And that girl also stood up to fight against the monsters that were destroying the plane. Lin Dao says this is his last chance, and in this mission they just need to bring the target back to a safe base. And the target is a new form of God Slayer like him. The group then saw the plane and it was covered with monsters. Lin Dao tried to contact the other party when Lenka saw someone fighting, but she refused because Lin Dao wanted to leave the plane behind. She thinks she doesn't need to be rescued but can take care of herself. However, Lenka decides to help her and then shoots down some monsters with Sakuja from the helicopter. Alisa is so professional that she flexibly changes between sword and gun. Sakuja and Lenka up here are running low on ammo. Alisa hooked a rope on her body and then the gun shot down a few animals under the plane. But she ran out of ammo. Still, she was undeterred. She had the gun shoot a monster head and eat a monster and then turn it into bullets to shoot again. They found this to be the new mechanism of the Holy Spirits. But at this moment, a monster evolved and then called for a swarm that was several times larger. According to the experiment, cells can call on each other. She promised them to take them all to the new base so they don't need to worry. He blamed her for not mentioning this sooner, but she didn't think their rescue list included a crew. He knew she was right, so he called Lin Dao and now he understood why Alisa was determined not to go. Lenka wanted to use the same plane to return to base. Lin Dao knows this will be quite risky, so she wants Alisa to cooperate in the fight. They decided to kill the evolution first to avoid it calling more. He assigned them both to evolve since he couldn't attack from long range. Sakuja will support both, as long as he could handle the evolution and he would take care of the rest. The three got on the roof of the plane and fought. While fighting for a while, Sakuja discovered that a child was about to evolve, so Lenka was about to shoot but ran out of ammo. He remembered Alisa's trick, so he tried and succeeded in defeating the one that was about to evolve. Alisa also did not want to lose to him, so she also rushed to fight. She jumped on top of one and approached the evolution and then took it away and jumped down. The whole group fought hard until the afternoon to successfully handle all of them. The group succeeded beyond expectations and reported back to the commander. The group set out to continue to return to the Lenka organization and Alisa was then led to the minister by the commander. She knew why she was sent to this branch and Lenka was cleared of her crimes last time. The two were led away by the commander and she said that they would both join the same squad. The two will be with her and will be under the command of the first squad leader Lin Dao. He and two members of the team introduced themselves and let the three rest, because they have a mission tomorrow. She asked her two friends to go for a walk, but Alisa refused, and she and Lenka went to the people's quarters and Luca noticed that the people here are always given food periodically. He didn't know because he was the one who came in from outside the wall. The two then went to her house. His mother heard that he had joined a squad and was worried that her son would be involved and dangerous. But she made up an excuse to leave, so I just wanted him back safely. She then took Lenka to see the area that was destroyed by monsters last time and was slowly being repaired. She hoped the plan would be completed soon, but Lenka didn't know yet. So he took Lenka to see the area that had been destroyed by monsters last time and was slowly being repaired, because they have to eat the monster to get the error. Lenka went out with Saku and encountered one. As soon as Lenka shot them one, Saku gestured for him to eat the monster and successfully retrieved the core. She then went with Lenka to continue, but Lin's side was not good, because Alisa liked to do everything herself. As for Soma, she kept acting unpleasant and as soon as the monster appeared, she was startled and fell, leaving him to fend for himself. Lenka and Sakuja just released another female, but it's not the kind they need to kill. So, Sakuja wants him to leave them both and chase the main target up to the rooftop and find Alisa here. She had just killed one and didn't care that a female had just run up here. Lenka went down to fight and was pushed down by it, so Soma had to take care of it. At the end of the day, the group had killed enough numbers to leave. On the way, the group met a group of refugees and brought them home together. On shift gave her a bottle of water and she admires God Slayers like them. By the time they got back to the base, the group had already left through another gate and let the refugees in through the civilian door. Once inside, Lenka heard that the other party was having some problems, so he ran over. He saw that the soldiers wouldn't let them in, so he asked why it was, because no one in this group was compatible and had the ability to become a God Slayer. And this place is only for compatible people and their families, because they can't feed all of humanity right now. He couldn't do anything. Even so, he was called back by Lin Dao, so his heart was still burning. By the time they got back to base, and the group had already reported to the commander and Lenka was about to say something. Lenka said something, but then turned away. Soma also left and assumed that Lenka's actions must be because he used to live outside. But both Lin Dao and Sakuja had lived outside before, and they assumed that Soma wouldn't understand how hard it was to live outside. He was still disturbed by dreams about the outside world that night. The next morning he asked about the ship that was intended to be used to rescue people. Soma then came to accept the assignment when Hibazi informed him that he had a request from the minister. Lenka then went with Kota, Alisa and Saku to accept the mission. But killing the two Vajas was a bit difficult, because Lin Dao and Soma went on a mission for the minister, so Sakuja took on the task of slaying 6 common range monsters. But Alisa was willing to accept to kill the big one, so Sakuja had to change. The group then went together to deal with 2 common monsters. She was still shaking, so she encouraged him to be strong and she opened fire. But suddenly a black and bigger monster came and ate the Vaja and the others. It rushed over and crushed the second one's head and ate it. They saw this horrifying scene for the first time. It doesn't care about humans, it only targets Vaja. But Alisa recognized this black Vaja because it was her greatest enemy. She drank a bunch of pills and jumped ahead, so Lenka had to give chase. The other refugees and Sakuja didn't know how to handle. Alisa rushed over and was thrown away. When she returned fire, it rushed to knock Lenka down and hit her with a blow that paralyzed her and Sakuja, and the refugees have fallen prey to it. It kept chasing and Lenka got angry and chased. Alisa had followed it first, but it was too fast to attempt melee or even ranged attacks. It quickly hid itself and attacked suddenly, causing Alisa to lose consciousness. It aimed for the refugee again when Lenka rushed over, but its wings cut him once. He still dragged that broken body and ran to block the blow. It laughed, and just as Lenka was about to awaken something, it cut the sword. The tree was immediately crushed by it straight to the ground. The refugee was eaten right in front of his eyes. The monster cells in the sword also died, so now his divine instrument was like a piece of iron. Alisa has come to get its attention. It was about to rush to her when the other 2 opened fire to pull it in another direction. Lenka went to catch Alisa, but she immediately changed direction to both of them. It rushed over and once again opened its mouth to laugh. This person showed him about strange creatures found recently, and most importantly a dog that had come out of the lab by absorbing the lab material. What it has in common with the recently discovered organisms is that they were all developed from a single stem cell, which is also what he and his colleagues are working on. And that was the beginning for these monsters. He came to help her and she gave her CPR to wake her up. He succeeded in getting her to push the water out, and there were quite a few monsters around, so he took her to find shelter. She later regained consciousness to find Lenka watching over her. The black dragon is gone, her weapon is also missing, and her medicine is gone. She was about to look for it when she found Lenka lying there. He was badly injured but still decided to help bring her here and bandage her first. She stayed behind to inject and bandage Lenka. She saw that his weapon was worn out and it was really dead. There was also a Vazidin out there, so she had to stay here. She then recalled the scene from the past. When she and her parents were playing hide and seek, someone noticed that the monster was coming. She was afraid to call her parents, and then they were murdered by that black child right in front of her. At this moment, a monster rushed in, so she panicked when Lenka came to help her. He couldn't kill the monster, so he dragged Alisa to jump out of the building. The 2 took shelter in another place and he felt fine after being bandaged. The 2 had returned to the other river. Lenka was still watching to avoid the monsters and Alisa is sitting in a corner. Both knights had to stay in a warehouse and Lenka gave Alisa his shirt. The next morning, he went with her to continue searching and found it in the river. Alisa went down to get it, but was caught by some little monsters. Even though she had a weapon in her hand, her mind was still scared after what had just happened. She couldn't hold the sacred weapon, so Lenka went down to help. He swung the iron in his hand, but it was true that it was useless to fight monsters. The swarms of swarms were approaching and crowded. He then dropped his sword and stood up to protect Alisa. But at this moment, a bomb quickly flew and Lin Dao came to kill all the monsters. He assumed that he had forgotten what he told him, but he wasn't the only one left, because what else could he do in this situation? Lin Dao then led the 2 to an old forever house for temporary shelter. He called back to the base and told him that he and both of his subordinates were safe. But they were jammed with monsters, so they couldn't make it to the rendezvous point, because both subordinates were injured. He will take them to the rendezvous point when it's better. Alisa apologized, but Lin Dao wanted them on their way, because the fuck had already left. He led them to a mountain where there was still life. The trees look rather strange, but Lin Dao forbids touching. He led the group to a residential area that was still active. Lenka realized that the girl who was not allowed to enter the base was here. He went to the residential area to check and the tree was still growing well. He met the girl again and she said that Lin Dao had brought them here. When he went to ask Lin Dao, all of them were unable to enter the base. He didn't realize that he had saved everything, but only a little. He then went to listen to the situation and learned that a few people had died due to monster attacks. He and Lenka will go check it out and Alisa will stay here to calm down, because she can't even hold a weapon like this now. He took Lenka to the warehouse and all the items here were stolen from the base. He led him to the forest. He showed what he was doing here to protect everyone. A monster that gets lost in the forest and touches a tree will be killed by the tree releasing thorns. He said that they were all monsters and that he raised monsters to kill monsters. He thought that this was not strange, because the body was made from these monsters, after all. Because in order to survive, they must use all possible means. That's what they have to accept when they become a god slayer. He tried to call Alyssa and she was hiding in the closet. He asked them for some kind of weapon to create smoke and then received a grenade. He threw it to cover the monster's eyes and then hid to think of a way. Everyone was worried and he remembered the reason he became a god slayer. The girl and the other went to get food for him and he used a crossbow to shoot the monster to repel it. The army stopped the minister's research project as soon as Britain found something that could repel the cells of those monsters. And that thing was this potion. The next day, Lin Dao brought both subordinates back. When she returned to the base, Alyssa was taken to psychological treatment. Lenka's sword was taken to Lika for repair. She looked shocked. Both are temporarily relieved of duty, and when they will return to the team, no one knows for sure. The minister then met with his former colleague and discussed the other Vajra. It appeared in Russia 6 years ago, but the data is still too little. He will go and check out Lenka and then come to Lika to ask about his sword. Sakuja is still upset when he can't save anyone before that black Vajra. She went out and saw that Lin Dao was nowhere to be found. He met Dr. Saki here and he is the father of the sacred objects. He was puzzled because the sacred artifact was an artificial monster controlled by the other bracelet. But it was the first time he'd seen the divine weapon broken in two. He wanted to test his compatibility, so he sat and watched to see if he had the potential to change the spirit. He later discovered him and he went to the command room and begged her to let him go safely. Sakuja and the others are fighting 6 to 7 of them. Each one was quite large and Soma had just jumped up to attack when the ground suddenly collapsed. Reportedly, both teams are fine, but suddenly the monsters swarmed down through the fall and Lenka could only hear the screams on the other side. And Lin Dao had now set out for the Island of Hope because he wasn't sure if it was a monster lair or not. Back on the other side, Sakuja group was constantly having difficulty climbing up. Maps are also not available for navigation. Lenka realized they were underground and told them not to try to climb up. The commander thinks he has no authority here, but if he wants to save them and want them to go about 100 meters, there will be a wall, and go together, not separate. Sakuja remembered Lin Dao's advice, so he chose to believe him and try it out. Because there must be a wall to support the building so it doesn't collapse. He wanted them to move along the wall and find the way the monsters had entered. They found the sewer and the place was light without monsters, because he wanted them to take advantage of their compactness and kill monsters. As soon as the monsters passed the 2 people in the back, they immediately practiced counterattack. And when they returned, everyone praised Lenka for acting wisely and saving the group. Soma didn't want to praise him, but he only had to tell him one sentence so that he could return to the battlefield soon. He later met the commander and was ready to take the punishment, but she let it go because he did a good job. At the same time, it is announced that all will come to meet the minister this evening. Sakuja was about to leave first when he accidentally saw Lenka's compass. She wanted to know who gave it to him. He said that person was an important person to him. She also did not ask more, but said that he smiled a lot like Lin Dao. Dr. Saki then comes to him and wants him to follow. The minister at this time held a meeting and Lin Dao sneaked onto the island to investigate. The minister is introducing a machine that can attract different types of monsters. As for Lin Dao, she found a room and discovered something terrifying here, but the alarm was also raised. The doctor said that the more Lenka used the divine weapon, the more compatible he was, and sooner or later that compatibility will kill you. Alyssa at this time went to the doctor to ask for her fear to be erased. Then suddenly the world appeared a bunch of giant spikes growing up, and then monsters also appeared from the core cells that these stakes emitted. Lenka was surprised because she was about to die. The doctor said that the monster's cells have been ingrained in him, so it will eat away at his body. The more he uses it, the shorter its lifespan. But if you don't use it, he only have 3 years left. The doctor gave him a choice: either take a break from being a god slayer or continue to fight, and he will repair his spirit. The next morning, the commander informs everyone into 5 teams to go install 5 monster attraction machines, and Sakuja and Lenka were chosen to be captains of 2 different teams. Lenka thought that he did not have a divine weapon, but the commander did not force him, so he accepted. He later went to see Soma hoping he would accept him as his captain. He just walked away and others saw that he was quite black when he got attached to the god of death. He went to see the doctor and he said that the search is still not done because Lenka has not made a decision. When he asked about Soma, he advised him to look up the files himself. He goes back to his room to check it out and know that in the past, when the minister's group created something to turn humans into god slayers, and the female doctor whom the minister loved chose to be the experimenter by implanting the child in the womb and letting it adapt. Lenka read that when Soma was born, the mother died. He meets Lin Dao again and he notices that he is looking for files on Soma and advises him not to take his eyes off Soma or else he will find his own death. He was then given instructions on the road stakes used as a barrier by the monsters to destroy the machine. He later asked her why she quit being a god slayer because she realized monsters couldn't destroy but still believe it will end someday, so choose to raise the next generation. The next day, Lenka and Soma and the technical team boarded the plane to go down to the designated area and set up the machine with the fence. There were a few glares that came, and Soma swung a sword to destroy them all. After the installation was complete, the group went home. But the monsters had come up from the ground and they had crashed into the fence. Despite the pain, they pushed the fence closer to the machine, forcing Soma to dive. Soma didn't understand why he was trying even though his body was like that. He wanted to help the island complete faster. But Soma knew that these monsters couldn't be killed, because even if you take away the error, the garbage cells will create new monsters again. He later returned with Soma and the doctor knew that he was still stubborn about using the sacred weapon. And now that it worked, he would quit but he asked him to fix the sword for him. And the doctor who was hypnotizing Alisa called the minister back and informed the minister about the residential area that Lin Dao had secretly built. The doctor then hypnotized and tricked Alisa into targeting Lin Dao as an enemy. They are now looking at Lenka's past. He used to be an orphan left outside and was fortunate to be adopted by a family that was rejected by the organization. He is currently being examined and protected. He remembered the old days when he grew up with the refugees here. He lived with his adoptive parents and the condition of the area was getting worse as there was no cure for the illness. His mother could only lie sick at home, and his father had to go out with the others to find more food. Lenka and her sister also went on a trip to find things and both went to find medicine for the whole area. As soon as they got to the car, everyone was killed by monsters, so the two sisters had to drag each other away. His sister took him to the river to wash his feet and she wished for a world without monsters to play with. And Lenka wants to be stronger so that he can protect everyone he loves. Suddenly both are found by monsters. Lenka wants to stand up to protect her, but with a stick, it only happens in a dream. The moment the two of them were about to be hit by a monster was a good situation. He later became acquainted with Lenka's sister and also gave him the compass. Lenka later also fell ill and was sent home. The family only had one dose of medicine left and Mom decided to give it to Lenka. The family refused, so Mom wanted to test Lenka's compatibility. But he passed, so it was decided that the dose would be given to him. Mom chose to put her hope in Lenka and believed he would change the world one day. He was later saved and then together with his family made a small grave for his mother. He was determined to get stronger and then grow up. She gave him back the shirt she used to wear on the day he turned 15. Lenka was out of the house when his father thought he was going to let him go to the wall. He was currently looking for fuel to the equipment. He caught sight of the house being demolished. He tried to run in but luckily found her. Dad wanted her to get gas to keep the word and then leave with Lenka. Even though the sisters were heartbroken, they still had to leave their father behind. The unfortunate sister was beaten by a monster and left a mark on her leg. The sisters then followed the compass direction to the wall. Many days passed. The older sister was gradually exhausted, and one night they both rested. Lenka discovered that her leg had gangrene. The hell didn't know what happened. She entrusted her dream to him and now he officially has a new bracelet to be compatible with the new spirit. He decided to be the one to embrace everyone's hope and use his life to fulfill it. On shift at this time, they went to meet the whole first team and they had to wait a few days for the last machine to be installed before starting the operation. She returned Lenka's shirt and was more polite than usual, but she seems more soulless. However, he wanted to leave it to Lenka so he could go to the front lines to fight. He was later approved as the captain and their goal was to get 1,000 cores from the large monster here. After the meeting, Lin Dao said he was tired of being captain, and since they'll be in charge of the Vajras, they might run into that black one again. Alisa can still kill that black one. Lin Dao doesn't blame her because it killed her parents. She invited Lenka home to play again. He had sat down to dinner with her mother and sister. She was taught by Sakuja today about the role and knowledge a gun user must have. He changed his mind since then and considers fighting to protect his family. When Lenka heard that, she also decided that she would have to make an informed decision so that everyone could return safely. She found him to be more mature. The next morning, he returned the compass to Lin Dao. He saw many things happened and he was no longer lost. He wanted him to keep it and give it to someone who was lost like he was. The team then hit the road and saw a bunch of Vajra running towards the machine. The 5 teams all decided to squeeze a phase. He activated another machine and sent the Vaza to the residential area. Lenka and Lin Dao both knew what was going on, so they found a way to deal with it. Lin Dao asked a scout to prevent them from losing a large number of cores. He chose to go alone and left the place to Sakuja to manage. He followed and discovered that the Vazas entering the forest would certainly not be able to stop them. The command room suddenly lost contact with Lin Dao and the Vaza suddenly changed direction to target him. He had just left when the doctor and Lika had already finished making weapons for him, and the most worrisome creature now awakened. Lin Dao is now having to fight the Vajas alone and stop them from entering the forest. Lenka was trying to get there in time because he didn't want a woman he treasured to die. The commander called Sakuja out and wanted her to destroy the machine. Because it got out of control and broke, she would stop coming and leave the place and go help Lin Dao. At this moment, he is still fighting hard no matter how injured. Lenka now saw where Lin was, so she called and asked what the weapon was. Lika saw that he was in a hurry, so she asked for the coordinates to jump to. She said that this is a new form to be compatible with him, so there is no need to eat monsters and reload. Every part of it could be utilized, and as soon as it was explained, the weapon flew away with a small plane. He then connected the sword and used the cannon form to attack Vaja and the others. He landed when the others came, so he opened fire again and the barrel started to corrode. He dropped the gun and slashed with the sword form. The Vajas are dying and Lin Dao has to thank him for saving his life this time. However, the Vajas are still coming, so the two will fight together to protect this place. The commander at this time discovered that there was a tractor on the mountain, so they came. Lin Dao and Lenka were going to try to destroy the machine. Both tried to chase it, but it ran into the forest and took control of the trees. Both were then blinded by it. But by this time all the members of the first team had arrived and trained. Once again, the commander discovered that the signal of the boss was from the doctor who was psychologically examining Alisa. He used keywords to hypnotize Alisa to shoot Lin Dao, but she managed to escape and shoot wildly, causing the trees to rumble and separate everyone from Lin Dao. When they tried to attack back, the thorns only became more aggressive. Everyone was pinned down and Alisa was safe. She helped the group save people first, and he also told them the truth about how Lin Dao had saved people for a long time. Sakuja didn't want to leave Lin Dao, so he let her know that he was very good at escaping so that she could rest assured and go save people first. The whole team hopes that his return makes him happy to have such a great team. He then went into battle. He was hit in the stomach by it and wounded. Lin Dao took advantage of lighting a cigarette and then lured it to the area where he had set up a quick bomb. It had just stepped on it when he used the saw to try to hurt it, and what you get is a piece on its wing. Soma called the police and helped him to the hospital because he took drugs to follow his lover. At the hospital, he realizes that the world that waits after death is black. The doctor told him that the group had now reached the residential area. He was about to jump in to save people when the black cow and black girl rushed over, and in its mouth it was Lin Dao. The commander then received news of the other monsters, and maybe the minister is the one chosen to live to the end. From there, he broke all the machines and sent someone to find Lenka's team, because he needs a living one for these despicable genocidal plans. Soma jumped first, forcing him to run to save him before he gave his life in vain. The others were also angry and rushed to it only to be knocked down. He had regained his will and had a plan to fight. The group went to gather the people and the monster was going to kill the other old ones. He then told Sakuja about the legacy that Lin Dao had spent her whole life creating, causing her to regain her will and decide to continue the mission. Soma will take care of the generator that's under the lake. The two gunmen will distract Vajra while Lenka and Alisa will take care of the black one. While Soma jumped into the water to break the engine, Lenka and Alisa kept flying black kites. He fired his gun and made the barrels unbearable, so he had to remove it. He unlocked the sword and charged at the black Vajra. It sensed that this sword was dangerous, so it shocked him with an electric shock, and Soma found and destroyed the machine. The Vajas then turned away like that. With the job done, the group regrouped to deal with Vajra Den. It continuously launched a review that forced the group to dodge. 3 melee men charged and the 2 gunners behind fired a special ammunition. That thing held the Vajra and this was her idea. Soma opened his mouth to praise others for the first time. Len had rushed to cut the crack and then cut off its wings with all his might. But his sword also broke. It then got angry and turned red and frantically beat the group down. He tried to drag the sword back when it reached out to treat him like everyone else who had stood up to fight it again. The group is knocked down again, but at least they buy time for Lenka. At this point, he had to eat the cut wing to create a new sword. He lightly swung off one of its wings and it grew scared. But he went up and cut off the wings and then stuck the sword in its head and completely destroyed the core. The minister at this time told the doctor about the plan. He plans to build a rocket to send the humans out of the world and wait for them to return. If the monsters disappear completely, they will return to building from the beginning. And if the monster apocalypse didn't happen, he'd force them to happen with this massive monster attractor. With it he will call the strongest to fight. But the doctor believes that one day monsters will evolve and have senses to communicate and live peacefully with humans. The two still had two opposing ideals and decided to fight each other to the end. Many days later, the minister announced the plan was complete, but they had lost a precious comrade. The group decided to make Lenka the captain and join him in following Lin Dao's ideals. Like this video and subscribe to Annie Summary for more anime recap.